My child, pause here before you move another inch. Do not let your hand scroll past this moment, because something has been trying to reach you all day, and what you are about to hear was not placed before you by accident. There is a reason your heart became restless without explanation. There is a reason a certain face entered your thoughts when you were trying to focus on something else. There is a reason the atmosphere around you felt different, as though an invisible door had opened and someone, somewhere, was standing on the other side, gathering the courage to speak. Your soulmate has been carrying a message since something happened today, and the weight of it has become too heavy to keep hidden. They are saying within their spirit, I need to tell you what happened today. It is urgent. Please open this. And heaven has allowed this message to reach you because what happened was not small. It touched a place inside them that they have avoided for far too long. Do not skip what comes next, because the first part of this revelation may sound ordinary, but it is connected to something much deeper. Earlier today, your soulmate entered a moment they did not expect. They believed the day would pass like any other. They thought they could continue carrying on with their usual routine, controlling their emotions, distracting their mind, and pretending that the unanswered space between you did not affect them. But then something interrupted that illusion. It was not a dramatic event that everyone around them could see. It was quiet. Almost invisible. Yet within their heart, it felt like thunder. They heard something, saw something, or were reminded of something connected to you, and in that single moment, the walls they had carefully built began to shake. Your name may not have been spoken aloud, but your presence entered the room. That is what frightened them. They realized that distance had not erased you. Silence had not weakened the connection. Time had not done what they expected it to do. They had told themselves they were moving forward, yet one small reminder of you brought every hidden feeling rushing back with an intensity they were not prepared to face. For a few seconds, they became completely still. The people around them may not have noticed, but heaven saw the change in their expression. Their breathing shifted. Their attention disappeared from the conversation in front of them. Their heart traveled toward you before their mind could stop it. Something huge is waiting for you in this message, because what happened next revealed the truth they have been refusing to admit. Your soulmate tried to push the feeling away. They told themselves it was only nostalgia, only memory, only a passing emotional wave. But the harder they resisted, the stronger the inner voice became. It asked them a question they could not answer. Why are you still running from the one person your heart has never truly released? That question followed them. It stayed in their thoughts when they walked away. It sat beside them in silence. It returned every time they tried to focus on something else. And eventually, they understood that today was not merely about remembering you. Today was about being confronted by the consequences of not speaking to you. There is something they need to explain, and it begins with a choice they almost made. Stay with me, because this is where the energy changes. Your soulmate came dangerously close to deciding that remaining silent was easier than risking rejection. They considered letting the distance become permanent. They considered accepting the story that perhaps too much time had passed, perhaps you had already closed your heart, perhaps the chance between you had disappeared. Yet just as they were preparing to surrender to that fear, something happened that made them question everything. It was as though heaven placed a mirror before their soul and showed them the future that silence would create. For one brief but powerful moment, they imagined never speaking to you again. They pictured years moving forward without your voice, without your presence, without the possibility of healing what had been left unfinished. They imagined hearing that you had finally given your heart to someone who was not afraid to choose you. They imagined seeing you happy from a distance while knowing they had once held the opportunity to be honest and allowed fear to destroy it. That vision struck them deeply. It did not feel like imagination. It felt like a warning from their own spirit, a glimpse of what could happen if they continued delaying what their heart had been begging them to do. My child, you must understand something. This person has not been silent because they feel nothing. In many ways, they have been silent because they feel too much. Their emotions toward you have not been simple. You awakened tenderness in them, but you also awakened their deepest fears. You made them feel seen, and being truly seen can be terrifying to someone who has spent years hiding behind strength, independence, pride, or emotional distance. They feared that if they opened their heart to you completely, you would discover every insecurity they had worked so hard to conceal. They feared losing control. They feared needing you. They feared that your love might matter so much that losing it would break something inside them. But what happened today made them realize that avoiding love can create the very loss they were trying to prevent. That realization did not come gently. It moved through them like a wave. They began thinking about the moments when you tried to understand them and they responded with silence. They remembered the times you waited for clarity and received confusion. They remembered how your energy changed when you became tired of guessing what they felt. They saw, perhaps for the first time, how their hesitation may have made you question your worth. And that recognition brought guilt, not the kind that destroys, but the kind that awakens. They want to tell you that they understand more now. They want to tell you that what looked like indifference was often fear. What looked like distance was sometimes emotional overwhelm. What looked like forgetting was actually an attempt to survive feelings they did not know how to manage. Yet they also know that an explanation does not erase the pain their silence may have caused. That is why this message feels urgent. They are no longer asking only to be understood. They are being called to take responsibility. Do not leave yet, because there is another layer to what happened today, and this part surprised even them. At some point, they found themselves defending you in a conversation. Perhaps someone misunderstood your intentions. Perhaps someone questioned the connection. Perhaps an opinion was expressed that did not honor what your soulmate knows about your heart. They could have stayed quiet. In the past, they might have avoided revealing how deeply they care. But today, something rose inside them. They spoke with more emotion than they intended. They protected your name. They corrected what was being said. And the moment the words left their mouth, they realized they had exposed the truth. Someone near them noticed. They may have asked, "Why does this matter so much to you?" Your soulmate did not have an easy answer. They tried to brush it aside, but inside, the answer was clear: it matters because you matter. It matters because their heart still recognizes you as someone precious. It matters because even when they are confused about what to do, they cannot tolerate the idea of you being misunderstood or diminished. Their reaction revealed what their silence had hidden. And after that conversation ended, they could not stop thinking about you. They began wondering what you were doing at that exact moment. They wondered whether you had felt the emotional shift. They wondered whether you still thought about them, or whether you had finally forced yourself to let go. They wondered if you had stopped waiting for the truth they never gave you. That thought created a sharp ache in their chest, because they sensed that your energy is no longer the same. You are not standing where you once stood. Something within you has changed. You may still care, but you are learning to protect your peace. You may still feel the connection, but you are no longer willing to lose yourself inside uncertainty. And your soulmate can feel that change, even if no words have passed between you. This is one reason the urgency became so strong today. They sense that the door is not guaranteed to remain open forever. Not because you are cruel. Not because love has vanished. But because your soul is growing tired of being asked to survive on signs, memories, and possibilities. You need truth. You need consistency. You need something real enough to hold. And somewhere deep inside, your soulmate knows that if they do not step forward with honesty, life may move you into a chapter where they can no longer reach you in the same way. Heaven is not revealing this so you will chase them. Listen carefully. You are not being told to abandon your dignity, break your boundaries, or carry the entire connection alone. You have already carried enough uncertainty. This message is not asking you to force an outcome. It is showing you that the silence around you is not empty. There is movement behind it. There is conflict behind it. There is awakening behind it. But awakening must become action before it can change a relationship. Your soulmate knows this now. That is why they kept returning to their phone today. They may have opened a message and closed it. They may have searched for your name. They may have typed words and deleted them because each version felt too weak for what they truly needed to say. How do I explain everything, they wondered. How do I tell them I was scared without making it sound like an excuse? How do I ask for one honest conversation after giving them so many reasons to protect themselves from me? These questions became the center of their day. At one point, they nearly reached out. Their finger hovered. Their heart beat faster. They imagined your reaction. Would you respond warmly? Would you remain silent? Would you ask why it took so long? Would you believe them? The uncertainty stopped them for a moment, but it did not remove the desire. In fact, it made the truth even clearer. Your response matters deeply to them because your place in their heart is still alive. Stay until the end, because the most important thing they discovered today was not simply that they miss you. Missing someone can be temporary. What they discovered was that their connection with you has become part of the way they understand themselves. You did not only offer affection. You reflected something back to them. You showed them who they could become when they were honest, open, and emotionally present. Around you, they saw a version of themselves that felt more real. Losing contact with you did not only create loneliness. It created distance from that version of themselves. That is why other connections have not felt the same. Even when they tried to distract themselves, something remained incomplete. Conversations may have happened, but the depth was missing. Laughter may have appeared, but it did not reach the same place. They may have been surrounded by people and still felt emotionally alone. They could not explain why until today. Then, suddenly, they understood. They were comparing every sense of closeness to the feeling they had with you. This realization humbled them. It also frightened them, because it meant the connection was not something they could replace by pretending. You were not merely a chapter they could close without reading the final page. You became an unanswered question in their soul. And today, that question demanded an answer. My child, there is another truth unfolding here. While your soulmate was confronting their emotions, you were also being prepared. The delays were painful, but they taught you what love must never require you to sacrifice. You have learned that compassion does not mean accepting endless confusion. You have learned that patience does not mean waiting without boundaries. You have learned that a spiritual connection must eventually produce emotional honesty, or it becomes a place where fantasy replaces reality. These lessons were not punishments. They were protection. Heaven has been strengthening your discernment so that when this person finally speaks, you will not be swept away by words alone. You will listen, but you will also observe. You will feel, but you will also remember your worth. You will recognize the difference between a temporary emotional reaction and a genuine decision to change. This is why you should not be afraid of what is coming. You are no longer the version of yourself who would accept crumbs simply because they came from someone you loved. Your soulmate can sense that strength in you. It is part of what is drawing them forward and making them nervous at the same time. They know they cannot return casually. They cannot offer vague hints and expect you to decode them. They cannot appear for a moment, stir your emotions, and disappear again without consequence. Something in your energy now demands maturity. It says, "Come honestly, or do not disturb the peace I fought to build." And yet, beneath that strength, there is still tenderness. There is still a part of you that wonders what they would say if fear disappeared. There is still a part of you that remembers the connection before confusion entered it. Heaven sees both parts, the part that loves and the part that protects. Neither is wrong. Your heart is not foolish for caring, and your boundaries are not cruel for requiring truth. What happened today is pushing your soulmate toward that truth. But before they can speak to you, they must face something about themselves. There is a secret reason they delayed, and it goes beyond ordinary fear. It is connected to a past wound they never fully healed. They once trusted someone or something deeply and watched it collapse. Since then, whenever love becomes real, an alarm awakens inside them. It tells them to withdraw before they can be abandoned. It tells them to create distance before someone else has the power to hurt them. They may not even realize how often this pattern controls their choices. With you, the pattern became stronger because the connection became deeper. The more they cared, the more threatened they felt by the possibility of loss. So they did what wounded hearts often do, they created the very distance they feared. They waited for reassurance without giving reassurance. They watched for signs that you would leave while behaving in ways that made staying difficult. They wanted proof of love while hiding their own. Today, they saw this pattern clearly. Something someone said, something they witnessed, or something within them suddenly connected the pieces. They realized that you were not the enemy. You were not the person trying to trap them, control them, or weaken them. You were someone who wanted honesty. Yet they treated vulnerability like danger, and now they are standing in the consequences. This realization brought tears close to the surface. Whether they allowed those tears to fall or forced them back, heaven saw them. They were not only grieving the distance between you. They were grieving the parts of themselves that had sabotaged something meaningful. They remembered moments when they almost spoke. They remembered messages they never sent. They remembered apologies they postponed. They remembered how close they came to choosing courage and how often fear won. But today, something shifted. They became tired of being controlled by the same wound. They became tired of imagining what might have been. They became tired of pretending that silence is peace when it is actually unfinished pain. For the first time in a long while, they asked themselves a brave question: what if I stop running? That question opened a door. Behind that door was an image of you, not as someone waiting helplessly, but as someone standing in light, becoming stronger, moving forward, and perhaps preparing to leave the old story behind. Your soulmate felt both admiration and panic. They are proud of the person you are becoming, but they are afraid that your growth may carry you beyond their reach. They know you deserve someone who does not need to lose you before recognizing your value. This is why their message feels urgent. They do not want to tell you what happened today only to explain their emotions. They want to tell you because a decision is forming. A real decision. Not a vague wish. Not a passing impulse. Something within them is preparing to cross the distance. But there is one final obstacle, and it may determine what happens next. Before reaching out, your soulmate received or discovered something connected to you. It may have been a comment, a photograph, a conversation, or a piece of information they were never expecting to hear. At first, they did not know whether it was true. But the possibility alone changed their expression instantly. They heard that you may no longer be waiting. They heard that someone else may have noticed the light they once took for granted. They heard that your heart may be entering a new season. And suddenly, every excuse disappeared. They could no longer tell themselves there was unlimited time. They could no longer assume you would remain emotionally available while they struggled to choose courage. The thought of another person offering you the consistency they failed to give awakened something fierce inside them. Not possessiveness, but recognition. They finally understood that love is not secured by silent feelings. It is honored through presence, truth, and choice. They picked up their phone again. This time, they did not immediately put it down. They opened the place where your name still lives. They began to write. The first sentence came from a heart that had been holding too much for too long. I need to tell you what happened today. Then they stopped, because what they needed to say next would reveal everything: the conversation, the realization, the hidden fear, and the unexpected news that made them believe they might already be too late. And as their fingers hovered above the screen, another message appeared before they could finish. It contained only a few words. But those words changed the entire story.